Hello and welcome to all you watching. Thanks for tuning in to our Valentine's Talk Live. I am here with my friend and colleague, Rigel. Say hello.
Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are.
We're going to talk today about Valentine's dating. Hopefully you have a date lined up for Valentine's. If you don't, you still have time. It's still a week away. But we want to help you have confidence, have style, and connect with your date, especially if it's a first date or it's kind of a newer relationship. So we have some questions that we are going to read, questions that have come in. Now, if you are watching this, please introduce yourself by putting your name in. I think there's a place you can put your name in and you can type a question into the chat and Rigel and I can answer it live. You can see if you can stump us. But we do have some questions we've taken in advance. So what do you say, Rigel? Shall we just jump right in and answer some of them?
Yeah, sure. I guess everyone will be joining us in the video, so they can also watch the recording afterwards. So we can start with the questions.
Okay, yes. And as Rigel said, if you are watching this later on replay, feel free to send those questions in. Like I said, you've still got a week. You still got a week to get ready for your date. Okay, so question number 1. How can you strike the perfect balance between being overdressed and underdressed for a date? I love this question because I think it's so important. I think even in business right now, people are even struggling with this. So when you're thinking about going on a date, maybe you're being surprised by your date and you have no idea where you're going. So you need to kind of figure out what you can wear to strike this balance. So what I suggest is kind of going to a dressy casual. That way you're not going to be overdressed, but you're not going to be underdressed. Like for girls, what I would think that, well, for both guys and girls, maybe leave the jeans at home on this one. And then for girls, what about a cute dress or a skirt and a top sweater, a nice pair of pants that's in a basic color that you could put a cute top or camisole and jacket with or something like that. For guys, also a pair of slacks and a shirt. You don't have to wear a tie, and a sports coat or some sort of fun jacket. But this way you're kind of covering all your bases and you're going to look appropriate. Rigel, do you have anything you would add to that from a guy's perspective?
I always wanted to remind all the guys out there to always clean your shoes because a lot of men, I mean, even myself, like maybe even women, like a lot of people tend to get lazy to clean their shoes, most especially if you're wearing white shoes. So dirt, and then sometimes it becomes a little bit yellow over time. So as much as possible before you go to your date, please have your shoes cleaned or get it shined. Because always when I meet with people, aside from looking at their face, I always look at their shoes. Because usually looking at a person's shoes gives you an idea like what environment he or she is in. And yeah.
I totally agree with that. And I think it's important for both guys and girls. Fariel does make the point over here in the chat. Shoes can make or break the deal. It's very important. And I think that shoes is a great reminder, Rigel, because shoes are one of those things you get your whole outfit together and you're all excited. And at the very last minute, when you have spent all your time getting dressed, you look down and you think, oh, my shoes. And then there's no time. So maybe do that ahead of time. That's something that you can do in advance. Go ahead and do that today. There you go. Spend the weekend cleaning your shoes and you'll be all ready. You won't have to worry. Okay. Next question. We have been asked, what's the most important thing to keep in mind when it comes to body language during a date? Ooh, another great question. So I would say the most important thing is to have open body language. You definitely don't want to sit with like your arms crossed. This is very closed. Even if you're, I mean, and okay, some people will say, I do this when I'm cold, and maybe you're in a restaurant and it's chilly. I think the better thing to do is just be honest and say, "Ooh, it's a little chilly in here." Maybe your date will share their jacket with you, but definitely watch that closed body language. Watch being distracted. Like you don't want to be looking all over the place. You want to give your date your attention. And maybe even another little positive body language is to lean forward slightly, not a lot, like that would be a little crazy, but just lean in slightly. And then you're kind of demonstrating interest in that. Um, Anything you would add, Rigel?
From my end, I do agree of like crossing your arms. It might be just a personal um attitude, but I tend to always cross my arms whenever I'm outside. I don't know why. But usually when I try to go on dates, I try to avoid crossing my arms as much as possible because it gives an impression of being protected or being reserved during the date. So as much as possible, I try to avoid crossing my arms. But I definitely agree with that one, Rebecca.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes we feel a little awkward and we don't know what to do with our hands. So we default to this. But so you might have to, when you're on your date, you might have to think, oh yeah, don't do that. Don't stand with my arms crossed. And
Also,
if you're, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention. Um, Also, whenever I'm always on a date, maybe even in a video call, I tend to smile. So as much as possible, look into the eyes of that person, smile as much as you can, give those wide smiles, and then I always do an eye smile. An eye smile is you do wherein it um how do you call this? I'm not sure with the direct translation, but you do an eye smile, so it shows sincerity to the person you're speaking to. So as much as possible, even I think even in the Empower Group sessions, when you're meeting me in the Zoom sessions, you're always seeing me with my eye smile because that's how I always interact with people.
I think that that's such a great tip. That eye smile, kind of your eyes get a little squinty, maybe. I don't know if that's the word. But it does look more sincere than just going like where your, your eyes are saying one thing and your mouth is saying something different. So a good genuine smile, look someone in the eyes, that good genuine smile. I totally agree with that. That is great tip. Okay, so next question. Okay, so what are some key body language do's and don'ts to remember on the date? So we've talked about that a little bit. We talked about crossing your arms. I think some other things that I would recommend is put that phone away. If you don't want to be staring at the phone, even if you think, oh, I want to show them this meme or I want to show them this photo, maybe this is not the time to do it. And I'm particularly thinking like if you're sitting at the dinner table or something, don't be distracted on your phone. Don't be looking for things to show them. The point of the date is to get to know each other. So you don't want to be distracted. And while I'm thinking about that, you also don't want to be looking all around the place, like looking for something better, looking for something more interesting than your date. You want to communicate that you're interested in this person and that you have things to share with them. You're interested in what they want to share with you. So definitely making that connection and not being distracted. Let's see.
I also wanted to add, like usually when I go to dates, this is my personal preference. Like whenever we get sit on the table, I always put my phone on top of the table to let the person know that I'm not distracted with my phone. And then if in case there's any emergency, someone will call me. But at least when you put your phone on top of the table, that establishes the um, impression that I'm going to focus on you by letting go of my phone. So that's what I usually do when I get seated on the table.
I think that's a good option. If you're a female, just tuck that phone in your purse. You don't need to have the phone out. Gentlemen, if you are wearing a jacket with a pocket big enough for your phone, I think that's a great option too, but definitely not in your hand. That is not where the phone goes. It does not go in your hand. So just remember when you're thinking about key body language do's and don'ts, What can you do to express that you are present, you're engaged, you're interested, and that you're trying? And again, I'm kind of thinking about a first date where you're trying to make that connection. You definitely want to communicate that you're trying because it can be awkward. We all know that it can be awkward, but there are ways to minimize the awkwardness. Okay, let's look at our next question. Um, okay, so what are, no, wait, let me, okay, we're talking about body language. Is there a go-to color you'd recommend wearing for a date and why? Rigel, you want to take this one first?
Sure. With my go-to color, since Valentine's is fast approaching, I will recommend wearing red because it's for the occasion. And definitely since red symbolizes the meaning of passion, love, might as well wear it during the occasion. So personally, I don't like red, as I mentioned you before. But it's been a personal conversation with me and Rebecca before, wherein I've shared to her before that I don't personally like red, but I'm trying to overcome that hate with red. And I'm also adding a little bit of red in my wardrobe. But right now, since it's for the occasion, I'm going to wear red for Valentine's. How about you, Rebecca?
I totally agree. Red could be a perfect Valentine's color. There's plenty of red in the stores this time of year. Of course, I'm going to say you need to get your colors done so you're wearing the right red so you look amazing. But you can also use less aggressive colors. If you're not comfortable in red or you don't love red, think about pinks and purples. These also communicate youth and romance and mystery and creativity. And you can also think about blues and greens. Blues and greens, they communicate trustworthiness, stability, honesty. Like that green is a very grounding, calming color. So that could be a fun color too. So think about those and think about the messages and the psychology behind the color, but then I also would say wear your favorite color. When you're wearing your favorite color, you feel the most confident. And that's going to shine through. And that is going to give such a good vibe to your date. And it'll calm your nerves, which makes things a little easier. Okay, next question we have is what's the proper etiquette when the check arrives on a date? Okay, so I am a big believer in whoever initiated the date is the one that pays. Because if I ask you out for a date expecting you to pay and I pick the most expensive restaurant in town, that's not fair. So if I want to go to the most expensive restaurant in town with you and I ask you out, I should be the one paying the check. So Rigel, what do you have to say to that? Do you have different philosophies on that?
I think it might be because times have changed. I've also had to talk with my aunt recently, wherein it's fine to split the bill, whoever initiated it first. So with people along my age group, we tend to split the bill based on what we ordered, and then but there are some times where couples have dates. Whoever also initiated the date or like invited you to the date covers the bill. But there's also some insights from other people wherein if the restaurant is decent but not really expensive, it's fine for me to cover the bill. But if we're eating out on a really expensive restaurant, um, I'm I will be happy to split the bill with you, even though you initiated the date. So there are some talks. So first, what I really recommend is talk to your date,
Yes.
establish this communication first of who will be paying. At least when the bill arrives on your table, you won't get shocked by what you will be paying for.
And I was going to bring up just that. A little bit of communication goes a really long way. And there's also there's no surprises when the check comes, but so maybe also have this conversation before you order. So you're not ordering something that you cannot afford to pay for yourself. And then you didn't know you were going to be splitting the check. So a little communication, I think, is great. Little open, honest communication. And the other thing I would like to say about the check, this is one of my pet peeves, whether you're with friends or you are on a date or whatever. When the check comes, if someone reaches for it to pay it, let them and say thank you. Don't sit at the table and argue. No, no, I'll pay. I'll pay. Like, don't go back and forth. Like, that's rough and it's unnecessary. So just graciously say thank you. I would love to treat you next time. Or next time I'll pick up the check. Just but don't make a big deal. Just graciously say thank you and allow them to do that for you. Okay, I hope that answers your questions about what to do when the check arrives. Okay, next question. I got to put on my glasses, guys. Oh. Okay. What are some great conversation topics to bring up on a first date? Okay, so this can be really fun. So think about the fact this is your first date and you don't know this person at all. So you want to kind of think of something that would be something everybody would maybe have some experience with. What's the best trip you've ever been on? And tell me why you loved it. Like, what was it? The food? Did you learn something? Did you go with friends? And that kind of gives you an idea of what they like to do for fun and what's important to them. You can also ask, what are your favorite foods? I mean, everybody has a favorite food, right? That's not something that is going to be offensive or difficult to answer. Do you have any questions you like to answer, Rigel? I mean, ask.
Actually, when I was still in the uni, I was really active in dating apps. Also, even when I graduated in the university and started working for corporate, we always have this thing in our bios called two truths and one lie, wherein you say three statements and have that person guess which one is the lie, and then that's a really good conversation starter. So you put on these three statements and then you just explain why. Like, you give the background story, you go through these topics, and then you'll get to know each other with those two truths and one lie. You want to know? When I can give you a two truths and one lie, Rebecca, and then
Okay.
you can try to guess which one is the lie.
Okay. Let's see how well I know you.
I have five cats. Statement one. Statement two is I'm a techie person. Statement three is I love spaghetti.
I'm trying to decide if it's you have more than 5 cats or you don't love spaghetti. I'm gonna say you don't love spaghetti.
Yeah, that's the lie.
Okay. I'm like, wait, does he have more than 5 cats?
See, and then you'll get curious, like why I don't love spaghetti, and then you'll go through the topic, the backstory, and then that's a good conversation starter. So you'll get to know the other person, and then you can also share the similarities, the stories which you have the common ground with. So two truths and one lie is definitely a good conversation starter.
I love that. And actually, Rigel and I were talking about this beforehand, and I would have a moment of panic if you said you wanted to play that because I'm so bad. Like I do not have a poker face. When I said the lie, you would know I was lying. I'm not good at it. I'm really not. But I do love this. And the reason I love this is because, okay, we can talk about why do you not like spaghetti? What is your favorite food? It launches us into this whole conversation. But then I might circle back and go, do you really have 5 cats? Wow. What? Tell me about your cats. Or I might ask, you're a techie person. So tell me about that. Like, what type of tech? Is it online stuff? Is it video games? Is it movie making? Like, what? Tell me about that. So now we have 3 topics. And then if I went and I gave you 2 truths and a lie, then I mean, you'd figure it out fast, but we would have things to talk about. So I actually do really love that. That's a great first date kind of game. So fun. And then you would also know if you would have a date like me that is terrible at telling a lie. You find out a lot about that person. Wow. Okay. What are some insightful questions you should ask to get to know someone better on a first date? So, right here, what I want to start with is I want you to be thoughtful about the questions you ask. So, you want to steer clear of things like politics. On a first date, we're getting to know somebody. Maybe you steer clear of religion. Maybe you steer clear of anything that could turn controversial, like don't ask them about their parents because some people have lost their parents. So try to stick to things that most people have a common experience with. Again, I go back to tell me about your favorite foods, or tell me where you grew up. Did you like growing up there? What was your favorite thing to do when you were a kid? Everybody had a childhood. If you're going on a date, everybody grew up. So this is a common shared experience. You might also ask their hobbies. And once they tell you their hobbies, say, oh, that's really interesting. How did you get into that? And what do you do to pursue that? Like, for example, if you ask me my hobby, I would say my favorite hobby is sewing. And you might say, oh, when did you start sewing? What type of sewing do you like to do? Do you still find time to do that a lot? Things like that that helps you understand, or what's your favorite part of sewing? Why do you like it so much? So it's one of those things that try to think benign, not controversial, and something that all humans have a shared experience in. Do you have any other input on that, Rigel?
It's not questions, but based on my dating experience, because I've dated a lot of people in the past. Not to be proud or boast about it, but what I noticed is I always have this strategy or a plan wherein I always meet with my date on an arcade. I know it might
An
sound
art
weird.
date?
Arcade,
Oh, arcade.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
So it might sound weird for some people, but so far 100% it's been really successful dates for me. And on what I noticed, like doing the days on arcade really eliminates the awkwardness, and then you'll also see like what's the energy of that person whenever they win and they lose, and then you also get to create a shared memory. So so far, whenever I put my date first in arcade and then go to cafes and restaurants afterwards, that eliminates the awkwardness, and then the conversation just keeps on flowing. Instead of like meeting them on the cafes first, there's this tension or awkwardness wherein you're really shy to share things with them, but that really gets eliminated when you do first the arcade. So I highly recommend, if you still have the energy to do so, try to do the dates in arcade because it really helps you to break the ice.
I really love that because you're right. You do learn a lot about your dates when you're playing games, about them winning, losing, and the types of games they like to play as well. And you may have similar interests and you may have different interests, or you may introduce each other to new games that they haven't played. I think that is a really that's a great first date idea. So there you go. If you don't have a date yet, you have 1 week to find a date and take them to an arcade. I love it. Okay, our next question is a really great question. And it is a great question if you're on a date or otherwise. How can you Oh, wait a minute. We have another question thrown up there. Are there any topics you would recommend avoiding on a first date, especially those that might be too personal? So, yeah, like I was saying a minute ago, I think if you stick to things that are common shared human experiences. So, don't talk about money. Don't talk about religion. Don't talk about politics. You kind of go back to the old etiquette rules. Like these are things when I was being raised and my mom was talking about how to make polite conversation around a dinner table, there were certain topics that you avoid because they can be polarizing. People have different perspectives and they're topics that can get heated quite quickly, or like in money, that might not get heated, but it opens the door for someone to brag or to talk about how much they have and what kind of wealthy life. And then someone else who doesn't quite have as much may start feeling bad and self-conscious. So you can make people feel bad. And you can also, if you are very religious and someone else is not religious, this can become a heated conversation. So if you like this date, there will be time in the future on future dates to discuss some of these things. But maybe on a Valentine's date, maybe that's not where you want to go. Anything else you would avoid, Rigel?
Definitely agree with those topics. And then I also try as much as possible, if you've been chatting, I try to see if there was any trauma before. So by the time that I meet my date, at least I'll be able to avoid any triggers for the trauma, because you never want to make the first date impression really miserable for your date. So as much as possible, if you're already talking online, might as well try to share it a bit, and then tread carefully, because um it might not affect you, but it might affect others.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And if you can find out a little bit about them ahead of time, great. If you can't, just avoid anything that could have trauma attached. Like you may say, do you prefer books or movies? Oh, books? What's your favorite book? What's the best book you've ever read? Tell me why you liked it. Should I read it? And you may discover a new book, and you will definitely discover something about your date, what's important to them, how they like to be entertained, that kind of thing. Okay, so now this next one was one I was going to get to. How can you gracefully handle those awkward moments, whether it's dropping food, making an awkward joke, or dealing with a wardrobe malfunction? There have been several movies that come to mind that have these awkward table situations in them. So we have a little bit of a Hollywood has shown us a little bit of how to deal with it. But the biggest thing I would say is don't make it a thing. Like, just don't call attention. If someone uses the wrong bread plate, just say, oh, can you hand me that bread plate? Like, just don't make it a big deal. If someone makes a mistake or a faux pas, act like it's normal. Because the worst thing you can do is in etiquette is call out someone else's etiquette mistakes. That's the worst thing you can do. The point of etiquette is to make others feel comfortable. It's not to have snooty manners and show people up. It is really genuinely to make other people feel comfortable. So it's a set of ways to do things. I won't even say rules. I mean, they are kind of rules. A set of ways to do things that kind of minimizes chaos, keeps everybody on the same page, keeps things working in order. But if someone forgets or doesn't understand, if someone uses the wrong spoon for the soup, if you notice it, pick up the same wrong spoon and you use the same one too to make them feel better. It's always about the other person. So if someone drops food, if you drop food, if you drop it on the floor in a restaurant, if you drop silverware, napkin, food on the floor in a restaurant, you do not pick it up. You simply ask the server, can I please have another fork? Can I please have another napkin? And food you leave on the floor. You don't want to pick that up off the floor and put it on the table. If you drop food on the tablecloth, I would just pick it up and put it on the edge of my plate, just discreetly. Don't make a scene. And don't call out if your date does it. Don't say, oh, can't believe you dropped that. Like, don't say anything. It's not necessary because they're already embarrassed. Don't make it more awkward. And if it's a wardrobe malfunction, discreetly call their attention, like your fly is unzipped, and then say nothing more. And maybe look away while they take care of it. Don't stare. And don't bring it up again. Just let it go. Just discreetly, before anyone else can notice, you want to help them out, and then let it go. Because again, they will be embarrassed and you want to embarrass them further, and put yourself in their shoes, I think. Anything else you would add to that, Rigel?
Definitely agree with everything you said, Rebecca. And If that was me, I wouldn't really make it obvious. So if I have personally a wardrobe malfunction, I'll not mention even it. I'll not even mention it to my date because it may be a fun memory for your date, but you want to build your first impression really great your day. So as much as possible, try to breeze through it, and then not make it obvious. And then maybe when you in the succeeding days, you can mention it to your date, and then it's just going to be a funny memory later on.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Just keep it light. And I would say on this, if you do make a mistake, um, if you make a mistake that's noticed, like you're saying, like don't bring it up. If you make a mistake that's noticed, learn to laugh at yourself. Kind of just laugh it off. Don't get emotional. Don't throw a fit. Don't make it a big deal. Just go, whoops, that bread just slipped right out of my hand, and just get another piece of bread and move on. But don't make it awkward. Okay. Is there anything else you want to add? I think that that's all of the questions that we had. I don't see any more in the chat.
Yeah, that's all of our questions for today.
Fantastic. All right. Ella says, thanks for these tips. I'll visit this live when I finally start to date. There you go. If you have more questions, just send them in. And if you are watching this on replay, feel free to pop questions in the chat. Send us a message. We would love to get those answered for you. And if it's about style or etiquette, or even if you need some date ideas, maybe we can throw something creative your way. But do let us know that you watched. You can just say watched on replay, say hello. We would love to just get to know you and say hi back. Okay, that is it for us. I hope everyone has a wonderful Valentine's Day. Rigel, I hope you have a great Valentine's Day, and I hope you have something special planned.
I hope you also have a wonderful Valentine's Day, Rebecca. And also everyone who's watching this right now or in replay, I hope you're going to have a wonderful Valentine's wherever you are.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.